Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Hong Kong and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel quite a few times before. Now, I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last couple of years, a good few different styles, and if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they are pretty solid all round. In recent years though, they have had a few consistency problems because, there have been some really weird things going on with the business side of the brewery, but a couple of the beers have remained pretty damn good actually. But the beer that we're going to have a look at today is a style that I've had from this brewery quite a few times before. It's one that I know they can do really well, and this might well be my last review from this brewery for quite a wee while. We'll just need to see what happens. This brewery is about to undergo some quite major changes from what I understand. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we're going to stick to Hong Kong like I said. We're going to go a little bit to the north of me here in Kowloon, up to the New Territories, Photan to be precise, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from Carbon Brews. So this particular beer is called Love with the Coco. It comes in at 10.5% ABV, and this one is a barrel-aged Imperial Stout with cocoa, toasted coconut and vanilla added into it. So yeah, this should be really quite interesting. This is yet another one that I picked up on the closing night of the Carbon Brews bar in Central over on Hong Kong Island. I got this one along with maybe 3 or 4 other beers from these guys. But yeah, this is one that I hadn't managed to try yet, so I thought it would be really nice to take a little look at this one. But yeah, let's crack on with this then and see what it's going to have in store for us. We've had quite a few nice Imperial Stouts from Carbon over the last little while. So yeah, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Carbon Brews before, and we will see what we can do about adding more to that list at some point in the near future. We'll just need to see when the next review from these guys comes. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Hong Kong playlist along with a number of other things. That's being added to quite often because I am based here in Hong Kong now, of course, and do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days, even if I do say so myself. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a wee bit about Carbon Brews once again. So Carbon Brews, as I've told you before, was founded back in 2018, and the brewery is located in Photan in the New Territories, which is a bit to the kind of northeast of Kowloon. So the original brewery was on the 1st and 10th floor of the Union Industrial Centre in Photan, and this had previously been the Hong Kong brewery for Kyuchi, who are from Ibaraki over in Japan, a big sake producer of course, who started brewing their beers under the name Hitachino Nest. And so yeah, this was the Hitachino Nest brewery, and they established this one back in 2015. So the original general manager of this brewery was Chris Wong, who is originally from the US, and he was previously an accountant by trade, but he also co-founded HK Brewcraft and Heroes Beer Company while working for Hitachino's Hong Kong operations. But Carbon Brews basically took over the brewery in late 2018, and they were established as a completely new brand. So the name Carbon is taken from Photan. Tan of course translates into English as carbon, literally the chemical element carbon, and they quickly built a reputation for being very, very experimental. And the two main guys behind that were of course Chris Wong and Conor Hogan, an Irish brewer who's now brewing in Bali, if I'm not mistaken. But they had a tap room in Central on Hong Kong Island. This opened in 2022, but it closed in 2024. And they also had another bar in Akasaka, or they still have that other bar in Akasaka in Tokyo as well. But in 2023, they took over the Double Haven Brewing slash Dragon Water facility just down the road in the Wai Industrial Centre, and there they were operating a 35 hectolitre brew kit. And the current head brewer brewer of Carbon Brews is Diaz Jumashev. He's joined in the brewing team by Justin Chan, Lydia Kuzmina, Harry Liu and Tommy Liu. And as of November 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 140 different kinds of beer. Now, from what I've heard about Carbon Brews recently, and this was from some of the people actually working from them, they are looking to move their brewing operations over to Japan. So we'll just need to see what happens with that. But yeah, they are still running their bar over in Tokyo, which seems to be doing fairly well from what I understand. So yeah, they are looking to move their business over there. For some reason, I'm guessing it's just because the operating costs are less and things like this. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Carbon Brews for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on then and have a little look at the beer itself. So, like I mentioned earlier, this one comes in at 10.5% ABV, an Imperial Stout, barrel aged. It doesn't, of course, say what barrel they've used for these, and that's something I think Carbon really should have done, actually. But yeah, the artwork on this one is pretty straightforward and pretty nice, but we've seen this from Carbon Brews before. There you can see right in the centre of your screen, that is the Carbon Brews symbol. It's a plain black bottle cap on this one, incidentally. This is a 650ml bottle, and the other cool thing about the Carbon beers is that they always show you the ingredients and things in the one of the bottom corners of the label here. So this one has been hopped with Sabro, which is quite an interesting hop from the States, about 16% alfas, and it always gives you this orangey, coconutty type vibe. The malt base in this one is pale ale, wheat, oats, Carafa 2, Carafa S3, Cara Munich, chocolate and amber malt. So some lovely German Carafa malts in there. It uses Chico yeast, of course, Chico named after the hometown of Sierra Nevada in California, Northern California. And then yeah, they've got cacao, toasted coconut and vanilla in this one as well. But yeah, I'm not sure exactly when this beer was released, but I think it's a couple of years old, this one. But being a 10.5% Imperial Stout, I don't think that's going to affect the beer negatively, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass then and see what it's all about. It'll probably be my last Imperial Stout from these guys, or maybe my last beer from them for quite some time, which is sad because, you know, Carbon Brews were doing some really, really good stuff with Chris and Connor in the heyday. But yeah, there we go. So we've got maybe about half, a little bit more than half of the beer out of the bottle and into the glass. And yeah, you can see this one's poured pretty much as you would expect from an Imperial Stout. Not a lot of carbonation on this one at all, and you can see if you sugar the glass about, it's going to leave you some really kind of thick lacing just on the edge there. But yeah, a couple of bubbles around the edge of the glass there, if you can see it, if the camera will focus. Doesn't seem to want to do it at the moment, but yeah. If this one was to have a head, it would probably have a very dark tan head there. You can see little bits of kind of fawny coloured foam around the very edge of the glass. But yeah, colour-wise, this beer is pretty much what you'd expect. You've got that lovely kind of dark ebony wood colour in there. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. But when it comes to black beers like Imperial Porters and Imperial Stouts and stuff like that, it is very, very difficult to change the colour of these beers simply with adjuncts and things. That is just a little bit difficult. I've only seen it done once or twice. But yeah, this one does actually have a little bit of kind of natural haze to it, and that will probably be due to the presence of the oat and the wheat. The coconut might affect that as well. But yeah, there's really not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one, in all honesty. This beer does look yeah, it does look pretty kind of calm, in all honesty. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything else we can really say about the appearance of this one, in all honesty. And when it comes to the Imperial Stout as a style, there are a couple of ways you can play with these. You can barrel age them, of course, which is where you sacrifice a bit of the mouthfeel to get these more infused flavours. You can put adjuncts in there. You can do a longer wort boil, which is going to give you some more kind of sort of leathery and complex brown sugary characters, or you can do a double mash, which is going to give you a sort of big sticky mouthfeel. We'll just need to have a taste of this one in a little bit and see what exactly is going on with this. But yeah, those are a few things to think about when it comes to trying Imperial Stouts. But yeah, that's all the stuff about the appearance, all the technical stuff about the beer you really need to know. So let's go on and have a little look at the aroma of this one then. I'm very curious about this. Ooh, right. That's quite interesting. It's called Love with Coco. You expect some coconut in there, but it actually comes across as being really sweet, this beer, in all honesty. It's not overpoweringly coconutty, but it just, I think this is potentially the sweetest aroma that I've had from a Carbon Brews beer so far. So that's obviously worth taking note of. But yeah, the sort of fruity notes that come out of this as well are quite interesting. But you can smell like you're definitely getting some of the coconut from the adjunct, and some of it's also coming from the sabro in this as well. You can smell the oily part at the front of your nose. But yeah, it comes across as a very smooth Imperial Stout too. And one of the things you have to note about these beers is if they do sit in the bottle for a couple of years, you're going to get this really sort of silky, like chocolate muffin, chocolate brownie type aroma pushing its way out of the beer. So that's really something to think about when it comes to this beer style as well. So yeah, for me, this one is really quite interesting in that regard, because you've got the smoothness of the coconut in there, then you've also got that kind of cakey smoothness that you're getting from the fact that this beer is just that little bit older. So yeah, let's just try and break this down then and see what's going on with the aroma of this beer. But it smells very nice, I have to say that. So yeah, let's do it. So the backbone of the beer is a lovely kind of smooth oaky character, and it smells, you get quite a little bit of vanilla out of this one too, and obviously there's vanilla in there as an adjunct, so that's amplifying a bit. But yeah, the backbone of this beer is a lovely sort of smooth oaky type character, and you can smell the vanilla off of that. I'm trying to figure out whether it's rum or bourbon barrels in this. It might be a combination of the two. They might have actually blended this. Rum would obviously be a very good candidate when you're putting coconut in the beer, but yeah, I think it's rum barrel, this one, but potentially with a bit of bourbon as well. It could just be a blend of different things. Would kind of make sense to do that. Put half the batch in a bourbon barrel, half of it in a rum barrel. So yeah, the aroma of this beer in that regard, I think, is quite interesting. Yeah, I want to say rum and bourbon barrel in the base there, but above the kind of barrel notes, if you like, you do get this really nice kind of sort of cake edge sort of backbone to the beer. I think Carafa might be the one that's doing this. Carafa's a very interesting malt variety. There's quite a few of them, in fact, and they come from the Weiermann company in Bamberg in Franconia, northern Bavaria, Germany. And they're very distinctive because it's like a rye bread crust, and it's slightly toasty, but it's not overly kind of aggressive in that sense. So yeah, the way that goes together in this one is really quite interesting. So you get that sort of chocolate cakey edge forming the backbone of the malty side of the beer, and then above that you've got a little touch of rye bread in there, a more kind of chocolate cakey, chocolate muffiny type character, and of course the vanilla is kind of laced within that, and the coconut is there too. A lot of chocolate coming out of this one. Yeah, a lot of chocolate in this one. And the chocolate's quite interesting. You've got this kind of rich, maybe 60% cocoa chocolate further back on the nose, but then further forward on the nose you get a more milky chocolate, you know, sort of 30 or 40% cocoa, and that's yeah, that's quite obvious in the aroma of this part of the beer. So yeah, I really do like that side of this beer, in all honesty. Yeah, for me, the yeah, the kind of, yeah, I don't know if there's too much else to say about the chocolatey side of things with this one, but the coconut almost smells as if it really mixes with the chocolate a little bit. You know, if you know the Bounty chocolate bar, I can't remember if you actually get that here in Hong Kong, but I know you get it in several other places. But the Bounty chocolate bar, which I believe is produced by Mars, could be a Nestle one, but I'm pretty sure it's Mars. That really, you get that type of aroma out of this one. And I will admit I was not the biggest fan of Bounty. But yeah, on top of that, you get the brown sugary side of this beer. And for me, the brown sugar is quite interesting because you do get a little bit of leatheriness out of it, and I think that could potentially be down partly due to the age of the beer. So there's a wee bit of that in there. So yeah, you've got a wee bit of that going on. Some leathery brown sugar, you've got some nice kind of toasty brown sugar in there as well, a little bit of that typical kind of treacle molasses, and maybe just a wee bit of a kind of fudgy character to this one, and of course some regular nutty notes coming out of the aroma as well. But yeah, I think that's everything to say about the kind of malty side of the beer. When it comes to the yeasty side of things, at the back of the nose, you're getting yeah, at the back of the nose, you're getting some nice kind of rye bready character out of the beer. I would say the yeasty character comes across as like a mix of rye bready and kind of brown bready as well. So yeah, the way that goes together is really quite interesting as well. So yeah, I don't know if there's too much else to say about that, in all honesty. The hoppy side of things with this beer then. Now obviously the Imperial Stout is not the most hop forward of beer styles in the first place. This one has been barrel aged, so you know, quite a bit of the hoppy character will have dropped out of it, and then you've got the fact that this beer, the bottle is a couple of years old, so again quite a little bit of the hoppy character will have dropped out of this one. So there you are. So yeah, you are getting a little bit of green component in the aroma of this beer, but really not all that much. There's a little tiny bit of earthiness in there, some woody and herbally notes as well, which isn't something I would normally associate with Sabro, of course, but you do have to remember that hops will behave a bit differently depending on what malt bases and things you put them with. Even the different yeasts can have an effect on these things. But yeah, there's a little bit of grassy character in there, but yeah, woodiness and earthiness for me are the main features of the green component in this one. But then yeah, you've got the fruity side of this beer, and yeah, I do get a little bit of that kind of orangey character from the yeah, I do get a little bit of that kind of tangerine-y orangey character from the Sabro in this one. But yeah, the underneath that, you're getting the kind of more typical fruits that you'd expect of the Imperial Stout. There's a little bit of like raisin in there, there's definitely some plums, some figs, and you know, black currants and blackberries and stuff like that. Those elements are most definitely present in the aroma of this beer. So yeah, as I always say, take a little bit of time and just enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But yeah, I think that is everything we can really say about the aroma of this one. So yeah, this one is the Love with the Coco, 10.5% barrel aged Imperial Stout. I suspect rum and a bit of bourbon barrel in here, with cacao, toasted coconut and vanilla in it, from Carbon Brews in Photan in the New Territories here in Hong Kong. Let's have a taste of this and see what it's all about. Slàinte, skål, and cheers. That's pretty nice actually. Now, as I said, I'm not the biggest fan of coconut generally. But coconut, it can be quite good in an Imperial Stout list. Having it as a little bit of a subtlety, it can work nicely in some kind of like smoothie sour type beers as well, actually. But yeah, the way that this goes together, I think, is really nice. It gets a big thumbs up from me. Again, Carbon Brews showing what they can do, or what they could do with these big Imperial Stouts. First impression of this one is that it's a big sort of oily, slick and kind of smooth and dry type Imperial Stout. This one, I will admit that I do find it a little bit more oily and wet in comparison to some of their other Imperial Stouts that I've had. I wonder if it is a little bit younger, or I don't know, maybe it's just the way it's been stored or whatever. But yeah, it's an interesting beer for sure, and it is enjoyable. This one, I would say as well, it's a little bit less pungent in some of those adjuncty type flavours. So yeah, these are all things that are worth thinking about for sure. Yeah, but yeah, enjoyable Imperial Stout, this one. But interestingly, it does really feel kind of quite clean in a sense. But yeah, let's just break this beer down then and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth, as we always do. We'll start in the middle third of the palate as usual then. So the backbone of the beer is that lovely, smooth, oaky kind of character. And I will say that the oaky side of this beer is actually a little bit drier, which I find quite interesting. Yeah, as I've often said, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. And definitely as you go further back on your palate with this one, you can feel that the woody character just does get drier and drier with this beer. So yeah, that really is quite interesting with this one for me. As you move further forward within that kind of barrelly backbone of this one, you do get a little bit of vanilla toward the front of that middle third of your palate, and on top of that, as I say, you get the spirit out of this one. So the spirit has this little bit of I want to say it's more bourbon. I thought from the aroma we'd have a little bit of rum there, but it doesn't seem quite sweet enough to be rum. It does seem a little bit more like a kind of bourbony, like a darker bourbony type brown sugar that's coming out of this one. So yeah, you've got the barrel in there, the vanilla, and the wee bit of spirit on top of this one, which I think is nice. So yeah, I like that about this beer too. The barrel kind of lingers there into the aftertaste too, which is quite interesting. But yeah, above the barrel then you start to get the malty part of the beer. So you can feel the edge is that sort of like cakey crust that I was talking about. So you can feel the very edge of the, if you think about the cake that sort of sticks to the baking tray after you've made it, it's kind of like that part of the cake in a sense. And yeah, it is quite chocolatey, as you'd expect when you've got the cacao in there. So yeah, the base of the beer, I'm trying to figure out, I think, it really has this vanilla sort of coconutty, spongy character, and that forms the base of the kind of malty side of the beer. But I think in fairness, between the barrel and that, you might have a little bit of a more toasty, well-fired bread crust, which would be the carafa. But then yeah, the further into the aftertaste you go, the more that flavour evolves to be that kind of cake crust that I'm talking about. And like I say, through that kind of sponge cakey layer, you've got a little bit of vanilla in there. You've got the coconut, the toasty coconut as well. It feels a bit more toasty further back on the palate, of course. But then yeah, above the kind of sponge cakey layer, above that, you have a kind of slightly more rye bready type layer, and then maybe a wholemeal brown bready layer as well. So yeah, that's quite nice. And above that, above that kind of brown bready layer, you start to get, you can feel the chocolatey side of this beer coming out. So yeah, it's maybe like a more charred, like 60% cocoa chocolate further back on that middle third of the palate, and then yeah, as you move further forward, as you move further forward on this one, it has a little bit more of a, it's got a wee bit more of a kind of, I would say, maybe 40% cocoa chocolate. It's not quite milky, but yeah, you can feel that it does mellow out as you come kind of further forward. Above that, you start to get some kind of brown sugary notes. So the base of the brown sugar is kind of like toasty brown sugar, then you can feel the more leathery brown sugary layer, and you know, in the dead center of your palate there's a little circle there. It's not too obvious in this beer actually, but there's a little circle there in the middle of your palate, which is the kind of like treacle molasses type notes coming out of the beer, which I find really interesting. So that gets a thumbs up from me in this particular beer as well. Yeah. So, I don't know if there's anything else we really need to say about that middle third of the palate. It's kind of quite straightforward, this beer, I would say, but it works pretty well. Yeah, so, yeah, that's the middle third of your palate then. Let's go to the back third of your palate. As I've often said, the back third of your palate is going to give you very similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. But yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of kind of bready build up in there. You can feel the sort of sponge cakey character in the base, then you've got the more rye bready character on top of that, and a wee bit more of the kind of wholemeal brown bready character coming out of this one. And then yeah, the base of the base of that back third of your palate is the barrel. Then you get a little bit of the spirity layer, and then you feel a bit more of a toasty kind of bourbony sugar. Then yeah, you've got the kind of chocolate sponge character sitting above that. Then you've got the rye bready sort of character in there as well. So yeah, the chocolate sponge, the rye bready character, and then and then you have the kind of wholemeal brown bready side of the beer coming out as well. So yeah, that's really nice. For me, the way that kind of pieces together, I think, is really nice as well. But the wholemeal brown bready character and the rye bready character, those both feel a little bit lighter, taller, and more airy. And above that, you can feel some of the more kind of drier aspects of it's like a more charred chocolate that creeps over the top, and then some of the kind of more toasty brown sugars and leathery brown sugars in there. And then above that, you have all the yeasty side of things coming out of this one. So yeah, the yeasty side of this beer for me, it's kind of like rye bready at its core, and then around that it has a little bit more of an almost like chocolate muffin, coconut chocolate muffin type quality to it, and then yeah, toasty bread crust around the very edge too. But then yeah, the base at the back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of squashes down and condenses together that little bit. So yeah, the way that goes together is quite nice in this one. So the malty, for me, the malty and yeasty side of this beer is definitely one of the sweeter Imperial stouts I can remember having had from Carbon, but it works. Yeah, it works really nicely, in fact. So it gets a thumbs up from me. Let's go on to the hoppy and fruity side of things then to round off the tasting section of this beer. So yeah, as I said earlier, the hoppy character you can feel has kind of dropped out of this beer a little bit, but some of it's still there. The back corners of the palate, you get a nice little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, you've got a wee bit more of a kind of woody note out of this one, and a wee bit of a herbal character. Then as you push further and further forward along the sides of your palate there, it's a little bit more kind of floral, and then round the front curve of the tongue, it's just that little bit lighter and more grassy, I would say. So yeah, wee bit of green component there. As I say, a lot of it's kind of dropped out, but let's focus on the front third of your palate with this one. So yeah, front third of your palate with this beer. The border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. Again, you've got the kind of cakey character in the base, the rye bread and the wholemeal brown bread on top of that, and then yeah, the base of that back third of your palate, or the base of that front third of your palate, yeah, you've got the barrel in there. Again, you get the brighter side, almost like a rummy or sweet, brighter side of the bourbon, if you like. Then yeah, you've got the toasty cake edge, the sort of chocolate sponge, the rye bread, the wholemeal brown bread, and then you can feel the drier side of the chocolate just creeping forward there. And above that, you get that nice oily bubble where the fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. But, pardon me, I would say I don't know if it's the coconut adjunct, because it does feel a little bit toasty, but at the same time, you can feel that sort of coconutty side of the you can feel that coconutty side of the Sabro just pushing its way out of this one. Let's just look at the fruity side of the beer then. So for me, the fruity side of this beer, there's not too much going on there actually. You do get a little bit of a prune, a little bit of a date as you move further forward into the middle of that front third of your palate. It's got a little bit of a kind of figgy type character coming out of it, and then as you move further forward there, you do get a little touch of kind of orangey note, which you'd expect from the Sabro. The coconut's kind of underneath that, and then there's just a wee touch of like black currant or something like that. Fruity side of this one's not overly prominent in the overall picture of the flavour, if that makes sense. But I think we've said everything we really need to about the flavour of this beer. Very kind of silky, smooth and slightly oily, but clean Imperial Stout as well, oddly enough. So yeah, I think we can round off the review with just a little look at the mouthfeel. So I've given you a good start to it there. But yeah, for me, this beer, it's kind of top end to mid-bodied, bottom end to full-bodied. The carbonation is virtually non-existent in this one. Might just be due to the age of the beer, but like I said, the kind of silky, smooth and slightly unoily mouthfeel that you get. Your IBU in this one, it says on the bottle that it's meant to be 68. I have to admit, I wouldn't believe that. The beer does have a wee bit of dryness to it, but I'm not finding it overly bitter. The malt base, the malt base underneath has a bit of toastiness to it. It's got a bit of smoothness in the middle and a bit of dryness kind of on top. And then, the fruity side of this one, I think, is the fruity side of this one, I think, is just a little bit juicy on the end. But yeah, it's quite a dry and smooth beer, this one, rather than anything else. It's not like a pastry stout, but it has a little, it's like a kind of scaled back RIS, but it's not quite a sweet stout either. This is one that's going to test your palate a little bit and make you think, but overall it is quite an enjoyable beer. But yeah, don't buy this one if you don't like coconut. I think that's absolutely safe to say. But I think we can leave it at that for this one. This has been an interesting beer to try, and like I said, this might be my last Carbon Brews beer for a good wee while. So yeah, this one was Love with the Coco, a 10.5% Imperial Stout, barrel aged with chocolate, coconut and vanilla added into it, from Carbon Brews in Fultan in the New Territories here in Hong Kong. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Carbon Brews as well. and we will no doubt return to these guys again when the opportunity arises. Maybe the next beers we try from these guys will be the ones brewed in Japan. We'll just need to wait and see. But yeah, thank you for watching my reviews. Check out my social media, check out theirs, and I'll catch you guys in another review very, very shortly. Slàinte, skål, and cheers.